Welcome to the Radian Partners videocast series. So let's transition to Kevin's perspective. Kevin, Jose referenced a couple of things that you've done in the past as well, but please share your perspective on the kinds of changes that are occurring in the HHS space and which ones, in your perspective, will have the greatest impact.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like to keep it kind of broad because I have a theme that I keep for my even for myself, which is be water. So whatever the solution or whatever the opportunity or wherever the need goes, I go so that I can actually capitalize and bring innovation to that situation. And I think one of the things I discovered, just to put some context, so we can really kind of quantify for the audience what we're talking about. You mentioned $1 trillion or over 1 trillion that will be discretionary spending. That spending goes to the states. So that money is money that gets to fund our situations and our solutions. Prior to me coming over to Child Services, I was a CTO for the Indiana Department of Family Social Services, which is it manages Medicaid and Medicaid eligibility. And that particular group was over $10 billion from the feds that actually get spent over the just to put more in context over the course of the 5 years, I will be responsible for developing and implementing over $1 billion worth of new system development, not maintenance and operations, but new systems development just for one of the 50 states and the territories also including that, so Guam and Puerto Rico. So in one instance, 90% of the funding for that system comes from the federal dollars you mentioned. 50% of my child support system, or 66% of it, comes from the federal dollars you mentioned. 50% of the child welfare system comes from the federal dollars that you mentioned. And then multiply that by 50 states and territories. That's where you get your split. That's where you get your money being spent. And that's where that money gets implemented into the systems. One of the things that I really focused on was the issue of how we implement systems. And we find that, and we'll talk about that later, but we find that systems are being implemented in a way that's not conducive to the new model for IT itself, as well as the system implementation and managing and owning the cost of owning of those systems. And one of the focuses I've looked at is really paying attention to building an ecosystem that can be leveraged not just by your HHS organizations, but your other state entities where states will start to leverage that. And we've seen that actually applied in my situation in my state. Looking at technologies that are water-based technologies that allow you to implement blockchain, like you mentioned, allow you to implement AI, and that AI is going to take a person or person identification and identification protection. Those are technologies, those are platforms that are going to allow the organizations to make the transition from owning infrastructure that's antiquated to moving towards owning cloud-based ownership of the IP, not the architecture. And I think those are the things that we should be looking at, having a flexible platform, having flexible technology that enables and empowers not just to implement a new system that manages the continuity of business, but implementing systems that allow for continuous improvement and infrastructure that will continue to grow. And it builds a model for the individuals who are implementing IT and owning that IT and building partnerships with states, building partnerships with the HHS and GovTech, and putting us in a situation where the federal government can have more of a, not necessarily control, but influence. Because right now what happens, Mohammad, is that you see the feds will just give us money, check our plan, and then they come back later to make sure you did that plan. But I think what I'm looking for and what I'm looking at is the potential for implementing not just a Medicaid system, a child support system, a child welfare system, but building ecosystems that allow us to normalize that, share that data similar to what Jose mentioned, create an identity of our constituents, not just for the need of the constituent, the need of the citizen, regardless of whether it's a vaccine or whether they need Medicaid or whether they need a SNAP or TANF needs or services, child welfare, child support services, building that ecosystem that can transcend just your agency and build a layer at your state level that enables a citizen to have a relationship directly with the state based on their needs, and directly with us based on our needs and our ability to help better understand how our people move, work from a perspective of we want to serve you, not control you.